Now, I've practiced saying her name for the last 3 minutes. Let's see if I can not blow it, Mike. What do you think? Joining us now is Ksenija Pavlovic. Oh, I think I did that good. Ksenija Pavlovic. In fact, I had to ask Ksenija to send me an audio tape of how to say her name, and I practiced it. Ksenija Pavlovic. She's the editor-in-chief of a publication called Pavlovic Today, and she's got White House press credentials, so I meet her at the press briefings. Sharp lady. She's born in Belgrade, Serbia, and now she lives and works in America. Ksenija Pavlovic, good to have you with us.
Hi, John. Thank you for having me. It's great to be on your radio show, The Voice of Virginia.
Thank you. Did I say your name right?
Yes.
Perfectly.
Oh,
good. Okay.
Correct, yes.
I don't want to screw that one up. Okay, now we got the president. This is interesting also. The president's in Poland today. Both Ksenija and I were evaluating going to Poland as part of the press pool on this trip. Neither of us ended up going. So now we're talking to each other on the phone here instead of being in Poland and wherever else he's headed off to. I want to start there with a clip that I want to get your reaction to, Ksenija. Here's U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations, Nikki Haley. She's saying that sanctions against North Korea has not worked, and it's time to escalate actions against them in wake of their latest missile test. Of course, we don't know what those actions are, but there's something, and the president has given up on the Chinese because he's finally figured out that the Chi-Coms have played him for the past 6 months. Here's United Nations Ambassador Nikki Haley, probably going to run for president in 2024.
Okay.
The international community has spoken frequently against the illegal and dangerous actions of the North Korean regime. For many years, there have been numerous UN sanctions against North Korea, but they have been insufficient to get them to change their destructive course. So in order to have an impact, in order to move North Korea off its military escalation, we must do more. We will not look exclusively at North Korea. We will look at any country that chooses to do business with this outlaw regime. We will not have patience for stalling or talking our way down to a watered-down resolution. Yesterday's ICBM escalation requires an escalated diplomatic and economic response. Time is short. Action is required. The world is on notice. If we act together, we can still prevent a catastrophe, and we can rid the world of a grave threat. If we fail to act in a serious way, there will be a different response.
Blah, blah, blah. Okay, so Ksenija, look, there's a lot of talk here about what we're going to do. We were both at the press conference, a week ago, when Steve Mnuchin, the Treasury Secretary, said they were putting major sanctions on the Kong Bank in China. From what you've heard, what else do you think the Trump administration has to do here?
Well, I think the biggest problem, and that's not only an American problem, it is the problem of whole global affairs, is that we only know about the sanctions as a measure of basically telling the country that we're not pleased with their actions. Mm-hmm. So I think we need to have a broader discussion as to what we can do, and not only as America, but as a society at large. Mm-hmm. And what I'm expecting now is that the North Korea talks, an issue, is going to dominate G20. So maybe we should watch carefully what's going to be said there. And if you're going to have any new measures or some new ideas as to how to address North Korea problem. The problem I'm seeing here is that Nikki Haley basically echoed what Trump said on many occasions in the past few weeks. So her speech is not new in that sense. However, the situation is heating up so much that it can really go anywhere from here. Mm. And she's reaching our national security goal by sending a strong message to North Korea. But the problem I see now is that what if North Korea doesn't stop right now? What if North Korea doesn't take our words seriously? So it will be very difficult for the United States and the nations who are our allies not to act. So this is basically reaching a tipping point, in my view, that it's going to leave a very little space for any middle or mid-range solutions.
Yes, and the problem with any military action, as we were talking about this earlier, President Clinton came to realize, because he was really the last president that he was about an hour from authorizing military action when this whole thing started, but he got talked out of it because they hold the city of Seoul hostage. I mean, they have so many conventional arms that would basically obliterate so many civilians there. You know, we would basically have to evacuate the city of Seoul, which would tip everything off. So it's a very difficult position to be in. And as far as economic sanctions, the people are starving anyway. So, I mean, you're
I would be
right.
interested to see if it would be possible at all to establish any kind of diplomatic relationship with North Korea. Would it be possible to have any talks with their leader? Try that, maybe. I don't think this is realistic, but maybe that should be some alternative solution before we take some stronger measures.
Maybe that's
because
it. Look,
from here to the military intervention, there is basically no room. It's kind of like 0 to 1.
You're right. That might be an answer. Let's get to Trump in Poland. Were you able to catch any of his speech, Ksenija?
Yes, of course. I watched his speech and I followed all the poll reports, and I also read the whole integral version of the speech myself. So the biggest impression or takeaway from the president's speech in Poland is that he seems to be learning quickly about geopolitics and global affairs. He understands that it's America first, but he's also gaining understanding that it also has to be America first in the global world. Mm-hmm. So he's gaining this sense of a global leadership America has to have and always had. What really strikes me in this speech is that he gave call for the unity of our civilization. And in his speech, he showed that America doesn't shy away from hard topics and that there are clear challenges that America is ready to tackle through partnership and alliances, which is an inclusive approach to global affairs. He called for the defense of civilization, and the criticism to that could be, possible criticism could be that when you hear defense of civilization, what immediately comes to mind is the clash of civilization, a famous and largely criticized theory of the late Harvard professor Samuel Huntington. So Huntington's idea was that we are living in the world of the war between the civilization, and he particularly stressed the Western civilization in his theory. However, President Trump used the term civilization, didn't use Western civilization, which I think is a good thing. So I assume based on his speech that anyone who shares the same values of peace, liberty, democracy would find its place within our civilization. So it can be West, it can be East. And I think that's the step forward in our understanding and the strategy in the fight against the ISIS.
Oh, look, that makes sense. That makes sense. I think it would be interesting for our audience, Ksenija. Could you walk us through how you got from Serbia to the U.S. and then how you got into journalism? How did this whole thing work?
Well, it was a long road. It didn't happen just like in one jump. After I graduated in Belgrade at the University of Political Science and Journalism, I went to London. I studied there at the London School of Economics and Political Science. I lived in London. I worked in London. Then after that, I went to Spain. I spent 3 years in Spain. I was at the Hallmark Institute, one of the leading think tanks in Spain, and especially in Europe. And I was starting my doctorate there. And then after that, I came to Yale University as a doctoral fellow in the political science department at Yale University. My doctorate is on Al-Qaeda. And I spent one semester also at Columbia as a Herzog Fellow. And then I started teaching at Yale. And I was always a journalist in addition to all my work in political science. And I believe in a time of this election, I felt that the American journalism is highly polarized, and that what's missing is the basically objective analysis, non-partisan, and I decided to establish my publication, the Pavlovic Today, which is an independent, nonpartisan media company based now in Washington, D.C., and we are not beholden to any corporate special interests. We are not part of any media network with a political agenda, but we are dedicated to providing the highest quality content and unique perspectives to our readers. So everyone who is writing for us is an expert in their field. Those are people who spent many years studying political science and global affairs and politics. So they are addressing the issues from the standpoint of knowledge, not from the standpoint of partisanship.
Unbiased, straight-up news, what a novel idea. I don't think that existed anymore in America, but it's a fascinating story. Now, are you doing this 100% of the time, or are you still teaching at all?
No, I put a pause on my teaching at Yale. Now I'm doing full-time the Pavlovic today, which I think is a valuable decision, and I'm doing it from the sense of contribution to the society. And also, I like to be at the source of information and basically offer my knowledge and maybe different lenses into the larger conversation, because I didn't want to stay isolated in the Ivory League tower, discussing these great ideas that never get to be exposed in the society, because everything stays within academic journals, in panels, but the large public doesn't get to hear any of that. And I just felt that was missing, and this is what I'm trying to do.
Well, Ksenija Pavlovic, you've certainly gone right into the fire. You're at a good time when so much is going on in the United States, especially in the swamp in Washington, D.C. Now, you're in Washington. I mean, coming from New York, right? You said you taught in Columbia and Yale, so you're in Connecticut, New York, coming to D.C. How long have you been in D.C., and what's been the biggest shocker so far?
Well, I didn't have any shockers in D.C., to be quite honest. I like D.C. a lot. It is very good quality of people here, to be honest. Mm-hmm. And I have a very pleasant experience here so far. Very different from New York. Here it's much more leveled, I think. And I mean, I didn't know D.C. that well. I'm not even a year here. I have just recently moved. So I'm just looking to discovering, more of Virginia and Maryland and D.C. and see, how things are going to evolve from here. But maybe on the media side, what I have noticed is that most of the journalists are out of touch with the society, out of the Beltway. This is what I noticed. I think in New York, maybe it's much more connected. You still can touch into the different layers of the society, because it is just like a great melting pot. But in DC, it's very much like being in the Ivy League.
It's just fascinating, Ksenija, the journey you've made to get here in Washington and doing what you're doing now. I just have to ask you this question. When you go to the press briefings and you first went, now, I've been around this town and this stuff for a long time. I've been doing this in various areas, so I kind of get what's going on. But when you first went in there and you saw let's call it the contentious nature of some of the questions between Sean Spicer and some of the people in the media that sit in the first two rows, was your immediate reaction to that like, wow, is this how it works? Or is that what you kind of anticipated?
Well, what I discovered is there is a pecking order within the briefing room, not on the side of the administration, but on the side of the media. That's one, which I think, I understand,
right.
But it's confusing a little bit to see some of the media personalities acting as if they were more important than an issue at hand, or that they are more important than the President of the United States. That was confusing to me, because I was doing another type of journalism for a long time. I'm covering also Cannes Film Festival. I'm interviewing lots of celebrities.
Right.
And to see that some media representatives are treating themselves as they were, I don't know what they think they are, was very confusing, because I'm always very, concerned when I see someone that is treating themselves above everyone else.
Right.
That's concerning always.
And
when it
go ahead.
And when it comes to the questions, there are really people who are doing their work objectively, and they really present themselves to really find out what's going on. But there is also a group of people who are just trying to, make, themselves, trend on YouTube or on Twitter, and they're trying to become famous. So everyone is looking for their 5 minutes of fame by asking very provocative questions that have been answered so many times, but still they're asking the same question, which to me it's confusing that they are not basically listening to what has been said. And they're also taking stand from other correspondents. So I think you mentioned that in your show with Sean Spicer, that basically they answer one question, but then you get the same question just differently framed a little bit. So that's confusing. And I don't think it's the way to go, because, if we are here to be objective, then we should not be personal, and we shouldn't have the agenda.
Right. Well, that means that you like my questions the best, right?
Yes, of course.
Thank you. All right, we're out of time. I really enjoyed that. Great perspective. We're going to have you back. And we're with Ksenija Pavlovic, and she's a correspondent in Washington, D.C. She has her own publication, which she says is unbiased, tries to give it to you straight. It's called Pavlovic Today. You can go to pavlovictoday.com, Pavlovick today, pavlovictoday.com. Ksenija, thanks for being with us. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed our conversation, and I look forward to following more of your work.